Ego of other coaches, we absolutely have to talk about that. Have you ever had an experience where the coach was an egomaniac or worried more about what he looked like at the end of the game rather than what your kids were doing? We're going to hear some of your horror stories right after this. Stay with us. Take a look at these numbers, folks. They're scary for us as a society. They show that there is a definite deficit when it comes to ethics among our young athletes. Do you think there's so much emphasis on winning these days and being number one that we're actually willing to sacrifice the character of our children? My guest thinks so. Welcome back, everyone. Our topic today is The Agony of Winning, which is the title of the book by my guest, Kevin Toohey. And we're talking a little bit about the ethics and the character that seems to be lacking sometimes. Yes. And a lot of times it starts at the top with the coach, right? Yes. You heard Al Golden from Temple University say that if the coaches don't lead by example, the kids are never going to behave properly.
That's correct. And not only lead by example, but take the time out. I have this triangle in the book called the who, what, and why. The what side being the technical skill side. How do you punt? How do you pass? How do you score a goal? The thing with coaches is they think that all the time needs to be spent over there in order to win. Mm-hmm. That's a grind. That gets boring. On the who side, it's the accountability and the behavior side of that triangle. In other words, holding players and coaches accountable for who they're being while they're accomplishing the what. And then there's the why. What are the underlying motivations for playing? What are the passions for playing? And if all of those are extrinsic, meaning winning trophies, championships, all counting, and none are character-based intrinsic, you have a tremendous imbalance.
What do you do, though, when you have a coach who's, you know, it's all about him or her, that they're trying to say, you know, by always having a winning record or by always having the best kids, that it's a reflection on how good they are? What do you do in that situation if you're a parent?
Well, here's what I think that needs to be done with that situation is we really need a national program that certifies coaches, and not just certifies coaches on the techniques. I just wrote a curriculum for Drexel University that will certify coaches on character building, core values, and what is on the who side and the why side, so that we're not just emphasizing winning. And I think every coach in the country who coaches a youth sport should have to be certified with that program.
You know, you're having a huge influence on the kid and could actually alter the way that they look at competition for the rest of their lives. So that actually makes good sense. We've gotten a lot of responses. I have to tell you, these parents, we're going to be sharing some of these with you in just a second. Some of these parents who tell us the horror stories of dealing with coaches and how cutthroat amateur sports seems to be getting these days. So if you want to tell us what you think, you can email me at lynn@lynndoyle.net. Right now, though, we're going to go back to the telephone line because we're joined by someone who's very popular in this area, former NFL wide receiver, Freddie Barnett. Hey, Freddie, how are you?
Hi, how are you guys doing?
We're good, thank you. You've had firsthand experience with this now that you have kids, right?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Would you say...
I have kids that are very athletic, but it's interesting because they have interest in other things. So it's hard well, it's kind of easy for me, but it's hard knowing that they have the ability, but they don't want to really play sports.
Well, you know, everybody would look at you and say, hey, here's a guy who competed, you know, on the world stage, so to speak, was a member of the NFL. You would be the parent that might be pushing his kids, you know, to the brink. And in fact, you're absolutely not, right? You say that they need to play and be kids.
Yes, I believe that if it's meant to be, it will happen. I think there's evidence in a lot of kids that they are going to go to the next level, whether it's high school, college, or even pros. But I think the problem is a lot of parents are putting their kids in a situation to play sports or pushing them to play sports and go to that next level when it's really not their interest. I think it's a great outlet, but just playing in the backyard is a great outlet.
What do you think about
the pressure?
What do you think about the practice these days of either having a kid commit to a sport as young as like maybe 8 or 10, or saying to them, well, if you pick soccer, then you can't play softball, or you have to play winter ball. You can't, you know, try something else out. Is that the wrong approach to find out who's good at doing what?
I think it is the wrong approach. You know, in the book, Kevin talks about one of my daughters and quotes me on it. I have a daughter that runs like a deer, but she doesn't want to beat the other kids. So at this point, at this stage in life, she's 10 years old, and she doesn't want to compete. She doesn't have that attitude to compete and to see her friends lose to her. So we do a lot of running in the backyard, so to speak. So, but
and you think if she develops that talent later on, or she develops that competition, then you'll encourage it. If not, you'll just accept that that's who she is, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
It's very simple, in my opinion, because I think there are a lot of parallels in life that we don't use with sports. Let me give you an example. When a child is born, when you have a 6-month, 7-month, 8-month-old, well, they eat food, but their digestive systems are not ready for solid food.
Right.
I think there are some situations, especially with sports, that our young kids are not ready to digest yet, emotionally, psychologically, especially winning and losing.
Okay. Freddie, thanks so much. I appreciate your perspective on this.
You're welcome.
Great to talk to you. I like his points.
Yes.
It makes it really, that analogy of using a newborn child who's not quite ready to, to eat adult food.
Exactly.
A kid at 10 years old might just not have the emotional or physical maturity to say, yeah, I can go to 3 or 4 practices a week. It just seems like we're asking too much of them.
Oh, we are, and that's why it doesn't become fun. It's funny, Fred and I did a workshop speech called Competing with Compassion. And after Fred told the story about his 9-year-old twins, parents were dragging their 9-year-old sons and daughters down. Tell Mr. Barnett you love playing. Because they were so threatened by the fact that here's this pro athlete who said, you know what, maybe we're putting too much pressure
Well,
on.
you know what, I think I speak for a lot of people when I say the words compassion and competition don't necessarily match up. Like, they just don't seem like they belong in the same sentence. But then when I started to read the book, I didn't think the agony of winning belonged in the same sentence either.
Right. Well, what compassion means is caring, is tremendous amount of care. And don't we care about athletics and what it has to teach? Athletics saved my life. Abject poverty, escaped it because of athletics. My coaches loved me and they taught me about life. We're starting to miss that. And that's why I wanted to come back and write this book. Okay,
I'm going to go back to the telephone lines. Vic Seglis is with us. He's the athletics director from Long Beach State. Hey, Vic, how are you?
Good, Lynn. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I want your opinion on Kevin's concept of having a national program, a national training program, so to speak, for anyone who's going to be involved in youth coaching. Would that work?
I think it certainly is needed. How easily it works is another story. But I've known Kevin briefly for a year now, and someone who's had 2 young boys who've played collegiately and played all the way as through the youth programs. You have a real concern about who's coaching them. Are they learning the rules? Are they good teammates? Are they having fun? Those types of things. And if, like anything else in life, you're not trained, then sometimes things go in the wrong direction.
Now, you deal with kids at a college level all the time, right?
Correct.
Did all of them start when they were like 5 or 6 years old, or can someone really succeed by picking it up later in life?
Well, certainly it's so competitive at every level that if you stay out of the game too long, I mean, if you're a great athlete, yeah, you can do that. But if you're not, and you're very competitive, and that's the fine line, trying to figure out who has the competitiveness to be able to stay with it and accept the winning, the losing, the hard work, the teamwork, all that type of thing. I just think you have to get in the game early. The sad part is kids today are not playing football, basketball, baseball.
Right.
They're picking a sport maybe before they even get into high school.
Right.
And I can remember my wife saying to me, hey, your son wants to talk to you. And he was a pretty good athlete and a good basketball player. I'm at Arizona State, and he's in 9th grade.
Right.
And he comes in and says, hey, I don't want to play basketball anymore. I just want to play baseball. And I was a basketball guy, so I'm like, hey, that's a great decision. But he had to make that decision. He had to come out and make it.
So if it's his call, it's okay. It's when the parent pushes it that we cross the line. All right, Vic, thanks so much for your perspective. I appreciate it.
I thank you.
Good luck.
Bye-bye.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to talk more about the agony of winning, these horror stories with parents on the sidelines, and what you can do to change your behavior and perhaps your child's future.